Hi, beautiful. Today I am talking to you about the criticisms that Ayurveda and Ayurvedic practitioners tend to have towards a raw food diet, raw food lifestyle. Now, I will be discussing the main four that I received from my Ayurveda teacher when I went to study yoga and Ayurveda at an ashram in India 2 years ago. So there are many different criticisms. You hear things like you should never have raw tomatoes, or raw nightshades, or raw food diet is inappropriate for vata or aggravates vata, etc., etc. Many different things. You shouldn't have raw garlic, onions, etc. There are bunches of them, but I'm going to focus in this video on the main four from my own personal experience with an Ayurvedic doctor in India, with whom I had many lively debates that triggered a lot of pitta, a lot of anger and defensiveness and all of these things in me while I was at the ashram trying to be all like, zen and happy and calm. I was being triggered quite a bit because I came to the ashram with an understanding that I would be eating a raw food diet during my yoga training because that's what works for me. And then during my Ayurvedic immersion course, I felt attacked. And this was actually a pattern that I had experienced before in grad school, feeling attacked for my dietary and lifestyle choices being labeled as orthorexic. So I was working out some pretty intense karma with that. And now I'm finally at this place where I'm like, I've shared this in another video of like, yo, like, thank you for your opinion, but like, no, thank you. I am confident in what I choose for myself. I know what works for me. I definitely am an expert in what does not work for me as well. So I hope to empower you with that same feeling of finding what works for you, experimenting, doing the research so that you are confident and solid in what works for you, so that it does not matter what anyone else thinks and you're just doing your thing, because that's what people with long-term success on any kind of lifestyle, they have that kind of mindset and confidence. And that's really been something that I've focused on since I left my yoga training. So, unexpected takeaway there. Anyways, on to Ayurveda's critiques of a raw food diet. So I wrote them down on my notebook, so I will be looking down occasionally. So, using diet to solve mental and emotional problems. Focusing on raw foods to the exclusion of other things that are important to address mental, emotional, and spiritual imbalances. So again, this comes back to a more holistic vision and version of treating the mind, body, and spirit. Raw food diet is not going to be the solution to every single one of your mental, emotional, and spiritual imbalances. Now, it is going to help a lot with all of that. I have experienced tremendous mental and emotional healing of things like anxiety and depression, low energy, low feelings of self-esteem, self-worth, those kinds of things, with the addition of more and more fresh, whole, ripe, raw, organic plant foods, but without a meditation, yoga practice, self-awareness practices, paying attention to heart connection, authentic relating, getting enough sleep, all these other things that are really important to health. I wouldn't be where I am today feeling the most balanced and at peace as I've ever been. So many people come to the raw food diet as a, Hail Mary, like, please fix all of my problems, when in reality, it can help a lot, but it might not fix everything. So, another big one, number two, is that the raw food diet is too sattvic. It's too pure, it's too light, it's too You know, it's only for enlightened masters, yogis, these meditators living in caves who can live off of nettles and, breatharians, right? It's too light, it's too sattvic, it's too pure, it's too divine for most ordinary folks. And there's a lot of truth in that, because to really do a raw food lifestyle long term, you gotta have your crap together. Life still happens, stress still happens, and without being able to use food as a distraction, a numbing agent, a an anesthetic, really, you're gonna sit with some heavy emotional mental energy, a lot of which is not even yours, but you're going to be more sensitive, be more aware, be more affected and vulnerable to other people's energies, maybe for the first time in your life. Many people who are attracted to this lifestyle are ultra sensitive by nature. I definitely am. So it can be a lot to sit with when you're first starting out on this lifestyle. And there are some practical things you can have in place to make sure that it's not too sattvic in nature. So, if you plan to be fruitarian or something like that, that can take even just a raw food diet, kind of what I'm doing, lots of fruit, greens, and then balanced amounts of healthy fats. Understand that it might take you a few years to transition, and that is okay. Many long-term successful raw foodies, it did not happen overnight. Even the ones who say that it happened overnight, they've even said, they tried this thing 10 years before, for a whole decade before they had the overnight experience. They knew about a raw food diet, thought it was best for them, and then it wasn't until like a decade later they finally had that moment where they were ready and switched over and have never looked back. So understand that it can require transition. It can, and during that transition time, it's not just learning about how to choose like ripe tomatoes and stuff. You might need to be developing emotional, mental, spiritual tools that you can then use when you are on a full-blown or very high raw vegan diet, to make sure that you can sustain it long term. Because again, just because you're a raw foodie or a fruitarian or something doesn't mean that life stresses stop happening. I mean, that's just part of life, is change, and with change often comes pain and uncomfortable feelings. So learning other tools to use during those times of stress so that you're not reverting back to less sattvic foods during those times, to medicate yourself and make the pain go away temporarily. So I do believe, and I kind of joke about this in my book, Raw Food Ayurveda Volume 1, that if you are drawn to a raw food diet, you might just be a enlightened master or a yogi from a past life. Maybe you attained a really high level of enlightenment so that this lifestyle really does resonate with you in this lifetime. But that does not necessarily mean that you have all of those capacities and tools and abilities intact that you had in past lifetimes. So it is very important that in this lifetime you go ahead and cultivate those abilities, those tools, those skills, so that you can sustain this lifestyle long term if that is what feels right for you. Number 3, my teacher, my Ayurvedic doctor in India, said that most people develop imbalances and cravings. And again, this rings true with my experience. That's why I am very vocal about encouraging people to not ditch Western medicine altogether when you go raw vegan. Just because you're eating raw vegan doesn't mean that you're not going to have potentially issues with B12, vitamin D3, other imbalances, maybe iodine deficiency, like I've had. So, knowing that deficiencies and imbalances can crop up and that Western medicine can help you identify those by getting regular lab work done, getting your blood drawn, having urinary tests where that's appropriate, and just utilizing Western medicine when you do need it. It can help give you a fuller picture. Now, depending on who you follow, you might be hearing things like all the different tests in Western medicine aren't useful, and I think there is some truth to that. They're giving you a snapshot, a moment in time picture of what's going on in your body. So, take the results with a grain of salt and see what resonates. If you find out you have a B12 deficiency, maybe get tested again. Maybe get tested again. Maybe start supplementing and see how you feel. Experiment. And I really encourage you to not reject Western medicine in full, because it can be useful for identifying those imbalances that then say you're deficient in something like iodine, and that's really driving you to keep falling off the raw vegan wagon, whereas you could just do a stupid iodine test and start supplementing and have a lot more success long term on a raw food diet. So just trying to help you out here, not trying to rock any kind of dogma or throw any kind of dogma or indoctrination at you. I think it's really important to still stay open-minded. And yeah, so the cravings that she was mentioning, the imbalance can lead to cravings. So iodine deficiency, for example, could lead to recurrent cravings for salt. I know I was having lots of cravings for salt and could not keep my diet salt-free. Was also having a lot of vata imbalances, which vata is soothed by salty taste. I was doing raw vegan in the winter in Indiana, living off of mostly fruit, little bit of greens, no overt fats, and that was not appropriate for me long term. I became very ungrounded, very airy. I was also in a time of transition where I was leaving graduate school and moving, so I was already ungrounded on just like a life level. So it's important to pay attention to these things, so that I eventually fell off of a raw vegan lifestyle because I wasn't eating enough. I wasn't eating also in a way that was balanced holistically. And, there are ways to not have all of these cravings, which leads to number 4. My doctor in India was saying that a raw food diet does not engage and satisfy all 6 of the tastes, so of course you're going to have cravings. And this again rings true with my experience living off of orange juice and fruit blended smoothies all winter long, and I was eating probably at least a pound of greens every day, but no overt fats, not quite enough calories to meet my caloric needs. So I was having salt cravings all the time and cooked food cravings all the time, and just like cravings for density, like more calorie dense foods and fatty foods, nuts and seeds. Whereas if I just incorporated more of those things, I probably could have stayed on the diet longer term. Now, the accusation that a raw food diet does not engage all 6 of the tastes is not true. Depends on how you do the raw diet. So if you are living on Melon Island, for example, or any of the fruit islands, of course you're only satisfying your sweet taste, one of the 6 tastes. Say you're including some romaine lettuce and some cucumbers or celery. Maybe then you're incorporating a bit more bitter taste, a bit more salty taste, but still you've got at least 3 of the other tastes missing. Sure, you're going to have cravings ultimately for other foods, most likely, unless you're meeting your caloric needs on that mono island and you don't have any underlying vitamin or mineral deficiencies. You might be just fine. But most people, many people, do have underlying kind of imbalances, maybe deficiencies, that could be triggered by something like that, leading to then craving. So what are the 6 tastes? Just quickly, we've got astringent. So that's like biting into an unripe banana or persimmon where you get that kind of like mouth coating. So those foods are gonna satisfy the astringent taste, but who wants to eat a green banana or an unripe persimmon? No worries, you can get those from astringent taste from most vegetables as well as pomegranate and some other things. I have a whole chart which I can work on making into a format to share with all of you, or maybe I'll do a 6 taste video. Write in the comments if you want a video on the 6 tastes. I'd be happy to do that. We also have bitter taste, which is in leafy greens, cacao, my favorite, and sesame seeds, again, along with other spices. Turmeric is actually astringent and bitter. So turmeric, basically awesome. If you're not already including it in your diet every day, you might want to consider it because it can help balance you more so and cover those tastes that are harder to cover. So you could still be eating all raw fruits and vegetables, add a little turmeric, and bam, you've covered most of your tastes. So we have astringent, we have bitter. Next we have pungent, which would be in things like chilies, garlic, onion, spinach, and some of the spices. Salty is our 4th taste, and this would be in things like celery, tomatoes, sea veggies, dulse, y'all. I'm telling you, dulse is good stuff. It is so salty. Kelp, wakame, other kinds of seaweed, kombu. It's of course in sea salt. If salt works for you, that's fine. Include it in a raw diet. Tamari, coconut aminos, soy sauce, miso. Again, depends on you and what works for you. Salt may be a green light food or it might be a red light food. I tend to do better when I'm not eating salt, so just throwing it out there. But I get salt cravings, and if I do, I usually include things like celery and sea veggies and they go away. And now, especially since I'm doing celery juice every day, I don't have salt cravings. It's awesome. I also make my celery pulp crackers, and that gives me enough of a salty flavor in my evening meals that I really don't feel the need to add any extra salt. So check out my celery pulp recipe video, celery pulp cracker recipe video. They are so yummy. Okay, taste number 5 is sour. So that would be in things like lemon, lime, fermented foods like kraut, raw vinegar. Again, if you do vinegar, great. If you don't, that's fine too. Just use lemon and lime. Done. Tamarind as well. So tamarind paste, or you can get the fresh tamarind and remove the pods and the seeds and use that. Now tamarind can be very sweet when it's like ripe and ready to go. Other times it is very, very sour. I've had both and both are very delicious. And finally, the sweet taste, which if you're doing a fruitarian or fruit-based low-fat raw vegan diet, no problemo, you are getting plenty of sweet. And that is one of the greatest parts of the lifestyle, right? No more sweet cravings as long as you're eating enough fruit. So awesome. So all the sweet fruits are going to cover this, and it really shouldn't be a problem. But if you are doing a high-fat gourmet raw food lifestyle, then you probably would not be satisfying your need for sweet fruits. So that's something to consider if you are on a high fat gourmet raw vegan lifestyle. So depending on what approach to raw you're doing, you can kind of have different issues with the 6 tastes. But it need not be a problem. It need not be a reason that you fail on a raw food lifestyle. It's just important to bring awareness into satisfying all 6 tastes so that you do not fall victim to cravings, leading to binges, leading to falling off the wagon for periods of time. Because you can be a successful, balanced, raw food vegan. You really can. I'm doing it. I know many others who are doing it, and they're doing it still being low fat, still being fruit based, and still many of us not eating salt either. So it is very much possible, And yes, that is all I have to share with you today. Please like this video if you like it, subscribe for more, and check out the links in the description. Got my blog there, got my books there. There are lots of awesome recipes with tips for your dosha in both of my books, sweet and savory. So there is something for everybody, fulfilling all 6 of the tastes. So much love to you. Thanks for watching. Take care and namaste.